What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Matt is going to be joining me in just a minute to talk about the NBA Conference Finals, Jason Tatum's awesome Game 7 against the 76ers yesterday, and the demise of the Golden State Warriors, and so much more. Before we get there, I wanted to let you guys know that we're not really going to talk about the Ja Morant situation that happened over the weekend. I saw the videos, and honestly, my opinion is that it just makes me sad that there's a guy out there who has worked this hard to get to the NBA and has all this talent and just wants to throw it away to play with guns instead. And it really bums me out. The one word I saw tossed around this weekend that I thought wrapped up the situation really well is generational stupidity. Literally, the only thing he has to do to keep making hundreds of millions of dollars is not play with guns on social media, and yet he just can't do it. And he didn't even look cool doing it. He's just dancing around in his friend's car with the gun. And honestly, I have better dance moves than him, and I'm a 32-year-old suburban dad. So tells you where Ja Morant's dance game was over the weekend. But in all seriousness, I just really hope that he figures this out and gets his shit together, because it's going to be a waste of a career if he doesn't, and a waste of a whole lot of talent and a guy that I know a lot of kids look up to right now. So, Ja, get your shit together, man. Do better. All right, Matt's coming on in just a sec. Let's go. All right, Matt is here. And Matt, it's just one of those days where it turned out to be like a perfect day to record.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to Mexico for work later this week. We have a break in the action to talk about the conference finals. I feel like typically when we do these drop-in podcasts where we're just like, hey, we're just going to record a podcast tonight, that sometimes it ends up being our best work.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes what you need to get your best episode is an incompetent polar bear. An extremely inside joke.
There will be one listener of the podcast that will understand that. It'll be just Mike is sitting somewhere being like, they talked about the polar bear. Let's go. But not a whole lot of polar bear talk today. It's one of those times where you don't really need to write down a lot, because I have so many thoughts about what has happened since the last time that we were on the podcast talking with Clint and Devin about the 4 playoff series that just wrapped up. We now know our conference finals. It is a repeat of the bubble from 2020, the Celtics versus the Heat and the Lakers versus the Nuggets. The roles on some of these things were just reversed back then. The Lakers were the number 1 seed. The Nuggets were the up and coming team. I'm really excited for the conference finals. But before we preview those a little bit, I wanted to talk about how we got here. Specifically, the Celtics and the 76ers series that ended in 7 games yesterday. The big story coming out of yesterday's Game 7 is obviously Jason Tatum setting the record for most points in a Game 7 ever, with 51, beating Curry's record that he set against the Kings about 2 weeks ago. But I feel like for as great as he was yesterday, and obviously an amazing performance that's going to go down in the pantheon of great Celtics playoff performances, it's going to make a lot of people forget that he only scored 16 points in Game 6, and that if it wasn't for the 76ers pulling an all-time choke job, that the Celtics would be out right now and we would be watching Joel Embiid and James Harden in the conference finals.
I don't want to take away from his performance in Game 7. It's a great game. My critique of him is that they needed a Game 7 against a team, quite frankly, they never should have gone to 7 games with. James Harden laid 5 eggs in a 7-game series, and you can't get it done in less than 7 games.
Do you know how many combined points James Harden had in the fourth quarters of games 5, 6, and 7 combined?
7.
Zero.
Jesus Christ.
0 points, capping it off with a 9-point performance yesterday in game 7.
Thought he would have at least gotten a few free throws.
Nothing. Not a
the one actual skill that he has.
Zipperoni. Yeah, Tatum was awesome, but this kind of reminds me of the playoffs from a couple years ago. I kind of think that Tatum is setting up for his Giannis moment. You remember when the Bucks won the championship a couple years ago? They were literally 1 inch away from getting eliminated in that series, where Kevin Durant shoots that long 2 that would have been a 3, except for his foot was on the line at the buzzer, and it ends up being a tie game that goes to overtime. And we came out of that game saying, well, Giannis should really be out right now. The Bucks are still suspect. And then obviously Giannis goes absolutely insane in the conference finals and in the finals, and the Bucks get the championship. Well, this is that moment for Tatum. This is like you got a second life. Going into the fourth quarter of game 6, he was 1 for 13. God, I think he had 3 points or something like that. He goes off for 16 points in that fourth quarter and leads the Celtics to a win, and then comes back and drops 51. So it's going to be one of those things that's lost to history, that he really struggled in game 6 if the Celtics do win a championship. But the series, to me, I'm just going to remember how bad all of the 76ers choked.
Oh, yeah.
Like a full franchise choke job. And it was obvious. Like, we saw each other on Saturday. We were sitting there talking with my dad, who's a huge Celtics fan. And he was asking, who do you think is going to win game 7? And it was very obviously going to be the Celtics. Like, game 6 was the game the 76ers had to have to win this series. Tatum struggled almost the entire game. Celtics are not playing well. You're at home. This is your closeout game. And they can't get it done, which should be a surprise to nobody looking at who's coaching that team and who's on that team. You know, Doc Rivers now 15 and 33 all time when he has a chance to put the other team away. And James Harden with just another epic choke job after starting off the series so strong.
We called this, right? I mean, a couple weeks ago, there was, credit where credit was due was given to James Harden for the games that he had. And you and I called out his history in the biggest moments, the most important games of series. A game 7 has been atrocious.
Yes, but also let's be real. I've been calling for this since September of last year.
Yeah. Now we called it before the season that this team was going to be a second round exit.
I was gonna say there was 2 instances before the season even started. Back in September, someone, I think like Hoops Life, tweeted a picture of the 76ers starting lineup and said, "The reloaded Sixers, how far is this team going?" And I retweeted it and said, "This looks like the best team that's going to lose in the second round this year." And then on the NBA season preview podcast, when we were doing the best bets for the season, we mentioned that if there was a bet that you could just bet on the 76ers to lose in the second round of the playoffs, that I would bet like my mortgage, my wife's wedding ring, my car, my son. I would have bet everything on that. And we would have cashed in, because this is the ceiling of the 76ers team led by Joel Embiid. It's a hot take, but I look at the playoff failures of the 76ers over the last 5 to 6 years. Who is the common denominator on this team? It's Joel Embiid. He's the only guy. The coaching staff has been turned over. They got rid of Ben Simmons. They bring in James Harden. They have Tyrese Maxey. They get Tobias Harris. Like, Jimmy Butler's not there anymore. The common denominator, the only thing that has been consistent for the 76ers over this run has been Joel Embiid, the fraudulent MVP.
I'm not a Joel Embiid guy. What I will say is there were a lot of people who would have said the exact same thing about Kevin Garnett before that run to the Western Conference Finals in Minnesota. You and I both know full and well that even before that happened, that's not a solid argument. Now, does Joel Embiid need to be more? Does he need to create a better culture there, maybe? Yes. Is he the only problem there? Not by a long shot.
No, but like, I think he is the biggest problem there right now. I mean, like, and it sounds stupid to say because the guy just won the MVP. He's one of the better players in the league. But your culture comes from your best guys in a lot of ways. And it's not a talent problem with Joel Embiid because he has all the talent in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% an attitude problem and his absolute refusal to take any responsibility for this team continually disappointing every single year.
Yeah.
You know, we talked a lot about how he chucked Ben Simmons straight under the bus.
Yeah.
And how neither of us blame Ben Simmons for wanting out of there because of the things that Joel Embiid said about him.
Yeah.
He comes out after this playoff series and says, James and I can't do it alone. Sir, you put up like 18 in game 7. I'm astonished that he keeps doing this and keeps getting away with it. And Philly fans are just like, that's our guy. Love him, man. Trust the process.
Process is literally like an adult right now.
The process is dead, man. Like
the process has gone on so long.
If you read the stories, if you believe the stories about James Harden wanting to go back to Houston, or there was a rumor today that the Suns could target James Harden to be their new point guard next season, which I think would be absolutely hysterical. He could be gone and they could finally lose the asset for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the end of the process. Like if this team comes back next season and it's Maxey, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid, you did all of that to have Maxey, Harris, and Joel Embiid. That's like the final results of the process. Like it's rough, but the Embiid thing really bothers me for a couple reasons. The first is like watching this series, I have never seen a player as big and as dominant down low as Joel Embiid settle for so many jumpers.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly found myself being like, why is Joel Embiid out beyond the 3-point line? Why is like the 76ers were playing 5 out yesterday? It's like, okay, you're not hitting threes. You don't have a lot of great 3-point shooters out on the floor. Your best offense is throwing it to the elbow or throwing it into the post to Joel Embiid. And he like refuses to go down there. I'm like, is this a coaching decision? Is it like a Joel Embiid doesn't want to go do the dirty work against the Boston Celtics decision? It was like the whole later half of the series, games like 5, 6, and 7. This is supposed to be like the MVP. This is supposed to be the best player in the league this season.
Yeah.
Like, has an MVP vote ever looked this bad this quickly? Like, I know it's a regular season award, but has it ever gone south so fast?
I would have to go look year by year. I'm sure there's something that's at least come close because I've certainly seen some MVPs where I was like, I don't know. And then they don't go very far in the playoffs.
It's not even just the fact that Embiid didn't go very far in the playoffs. Jokic is just absolutely going ham every single night. He is dominating in a way that we have not seen a center dominate.
Well,
since
he's
Wilt
stale,
Chamberlain.
Adam. You can't vote for him. He's won too many MVPs.
Like Joel Embiid wins the award and then just shits the bed in the playoffs. And I know we've had MVPs who have done this before, but I don't think that we've had an MVP vote be this derisive in the past and then have it be this obvious like
Yeah.
4 weeks later, like right after the voting closes, have it be this obvious that everyone who voted for Embiid was wrong.
Yeah.
I know it's a regular season award, but I want the MVP to be the best, most valuable player in the league. And it is extremely obvious that Jokic is the best and most valuable player in the league right now.
The fact that the argument for him is just, well, his counting stats are great. Like that's the best argument that they have, really. And Jokic even like led his team to being a 1 seed.
Everyone who's in the top 5 of the MVP has great counting stats.
Yeah.
Like it boggles the mind that Jokic basically didn't win just because he's won the last 2. And they're like, well, Joel Embiid kind of deserves one. He's been really good too. And it's like, I didn't realize that this was a participation trophy all of a sudden.
When is it my turn to be MVP?
Not for a while, Matt. I hate to tell you this, but it's not coming for a while.
Damn it.
But like it outlines the fact that narratives rule the day. I also just think it's funny that all of a sudden triple doubles matter again. Jokic is getting all these triple doubles and has all these awesome stats. And people are like, oh my God, look at all the triple doubles. The only time that triple doubles didn't matter was when Russell Westbrook was literally averaging one.
Yep.
And now, like, they used to matter and then they didn't matter for like a year. And people were like, oh, it's kind of overrated. It's not that big of a deal. Even though Russell Westbrook's team won 75% of the games that he had a triple double in. But now that like Jokic is doing it, everybody's just like, triple doubles. They're awesome.
They only matter when it makes your point.
This is the thing about narratives is that the only things that consistently matter for the voters are the things that help get their guy votes.
Yeah.
Like the last 2 years when Jokic won the MVP, we never talked about his like defensive efficiency or like anything like that. And then all of a sudden this year, it's like, well, you got to play both sides of the floor, blah, 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 blah. It's a sham. Awards are a sham. And like the fact that we're going to have a season where clearly the guy who was the best player in the league this season didn't make the first team all NBA is a travesty.
This is exactly why. You and I have disagreed on this in the past, and this is really my point. Like this whole scenario backs me up. I will not use national like awards or accolades or whatever as evidence of how good a player is or one player being better than another, because they are a joke and they have been a joke for an extremely long time. Like there's so much politicking that goes on with it.
It's like the baseball Hall of Fame voters who just like absolutely refuse to put really good players in the Hall of Fame because they don't like them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I took my kid to a Red Sox game one time and Roger Clemens wouldn't say hi. So I'll just never vote for him. And like, you look at some people's ballots for these things, like, who was it? Someone just recently left Jokic off of their MVP ballot completely. Completely.
Yeah. Well, and
it's astonishing.
It took how many years for Terrell Owens to get in the Hall of Fame in the NFL? Mind you, like retired from the NFL as like undeniably a top 3 wide receiver all time. Just because he rubbed people the wrong way. It's not the Hall of Fame of personality, it's the Hall of Fame of football.
Yeah, there's just no objectivity in voting for these things. It's a popularity contest. It's not only do you have to be one of the best players of all time, you also have to do it in the way that I want you to do it. And people want to like take moral high grounds in like MLB cases, and like they don't want to vote for guys because they don't like them and they want to make them wait to get into the Hall of Fame. And it's like, I just think that people that do that just look stupid. Like you just look stupid not having Jokic on your MVP ballot this season.
Yeah, they do. And like honestly, they think they're punishing that player, but that player is also just like off living their life like 99 times out of 100 and really not thinking about you. So have fun being no one, being a little petty bitch.
It really is the case for so many voters. And like, I honestly, I can't even say that if I had a vote, I wouldn't be a biased voter. Like people would
Yeah.
be like, James Harden belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best statistical shooting guards of all time. And I'd be like, no, I watched him. I watched him play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I watched him choke. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Well, like they even made that comment on the broadcast that like he's a future Hall of Famer. And I'm just like, okay, I know he will be. I know that's what's going to happen. But there's so many other guys that played while he was playing that quite frankly I feel like are so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Half the guys that were on the floor yesterday are going to be in the Hall of Fame at this point. Like Embiid, Tatum, Brown, Harden, Tobias Harris. They're like, yeah, Tobias Harris can be a Hall of Famer. Let's throw him in.
He got paid a lot of money once.
Yeah, he was. They lost Jimmy Butler because of him. Let's throw him in. Yeah, I'm so over the 76ers and all of the Embiid defenders, man, until he gets his shit together and starts being an actual leader of
Yeah.
this locker room. Like, he's not a leader.
Yeah.
He wants to blame
But
everybody else.
yeah, and that's the part that worries me the most for Boston about this going to 7 games is that this team was ripe for just getting their ass kicked. And you really let them push you to the brink.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said the Boston Celtics are just so much more talented than the 76ers are.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching, I think it was game 6, and I kind of got to the point where I was like, man, if Harden and Embiid aren't scoring, who is carrying the load on this team? Like, I like Maxey, but he's not going to be your like primary guy every night.
Mm-hmm.
Harris is like, God, I forget that Harris is even out there half the time. And then they're like, oh, Tobias Harris with a 3. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I didn't know he was playing today. And then like PJ Tucker is like, my God, if I was playing the 76ers, I would be begging for PJ Tucker to shoot the ball every single time down the floor.
Yeah.
They're not, and they're not that deep. Like the bench isn't that great. And then
No.
if you're the Celtics, you're just like filthy rich with options. I mean, obviously Tatum and Brown, like Horford can put the ball in the hoop. Smart had a really good game 6. I want to give him credit because I talked a little bit of shit about him acting like he's the alpha on this team. And then he was the alpha for the majority of game 6 and they needed him to be.
Well, that's the thing. He is the alpha on the team. He just like shouldn't be the alpha scorer.
Yeah.
I hate even the concept of the alpha because where it comes from is scientifically disproven. There are no alpha wolves. Get over yourselves.
Yeah, but I wanted to mention him because he did have a great
Yeah.
game 6 and I'll give him his props on that.
Yeah.
But you got him and then it's like Brogdon and White and Robert Williams. And like this team is so deep with guys who can play both ways. And you're absolutely right. Like it should have been a lot easier for them to beat the 76ers team.
Yep.
But like we talked about last week, they give up that game 1 at home that you absolutely cannot lose with no Joel Embiid. And then Harden has the really great game 4 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point on, the real playoff James Harden showed up. And like
Yeah.
anybody who's out here defending Harden still, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
Yeah. This is what should be concerning for Boston fans is the main criticism we have about Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers is the primary strength of Jimmy Butler in the Miami Heat, right? Like, there's no doubt that the Celtics are significantly more talented than the Heat's roster. And yet, like, I honestly don't know what the outcome of this series is going to be because I know Jimmy's going to take it to him. And they have not necessarily shown me that they can show up every single night and handle that.
I don't know who's going to win the series, but I'm going to tell you this right now. There are going to be like 2 games where the Celtics win by like 40.
Yep.
And people are going to, and it might be like game 1. They might come out and win by a ton. And people are going to be like, oh man, this series is over. The Heat Cinderella finally struck midnight.
Yeah.
And instantly following both of those games, the next game will be an absolute rock fight that the Heat will win.
Yeah.
Like it'll be 95-89. And it'll be hard to watch.
And I mean, there were multiple like real low scoring games in that Celtics Sixers series as well. And I mean, shit, if that's the way you're playing against the Heat, that's their game. To steal Dan Campbell's analogy, like those sharks are now dragging you into the deep where they want you.
I feel like a broken record because I literally said this exact same sentence on the podcast last year when the Celtics were playing the Heat in the conference finals. And this is going to sound very familiar to my dad, who's a big Celtics fan. The Celtics are like a slot machine. And you have all these guys who have this huge range of outcomes for a game. And when it hits and it's like cherry, 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 they're the best team in the league. They're elite, scoring options all over the place, 2 wings who can light it up. Fantastic. When one or more things is off, all of a sudden they're scoring like 84. And they're the same team as they were last year with a worse coach.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they can't win a championship this year because I truly believe that all 4 teams that are left are capable of winning the championship at this point. I mean, it's kind of an obvious point when there's only 4 teams left. But like I could see them sweeping the Heat. I could see them getting swept by the Heat, and I can see every single outcome in between for this series because the Celtics just, I don't know who's going to show up. Is it Jekyll or Hyde?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they show up and play within like 85% of their potential, yeah, like I feel really strongly about the Celtics taking that. But I don't feel confident in their ability to do that on a nightly basis. And we know that Jimmy's going to bring it every night. And that team also follows his lead on the kind of attitude that he brings.
The thing that is so interesting to me about the Heat is that they are, to me, the only team in the NBA that it doesn't matter if they lose by 30. Like most teams would lose by 30 and like you would feel like there's momentum's gone and the team is like downtrodden going into the next game and be like, oh God, we just lost by 30. Now we got to go play again. And like a blowout has an impact over like how the next game goes too. The Heat don't care. The Heat are like, we got to get 4 of the 7 If you beat us in 3 of the
And
7 by 30 points a game, it doesn't matter if we get the other 4.
you honestly, like, blowing them out isn't even a good idea because I feel like all you're doing is piss them off.
It's just like smacking a shark in the face. You're just like, boom.
So like you get to 20 and like maybe like pump the brakes so that they can catch up a little bit.
Funny story. I listened to a podcast about Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. And actually, like, Bill Russell was saying that during the regular season, when he would play against Wilt Chamberlain and he knew the game was in hand, he would actually let Wilt start scoring on him. And he would give Wilt like a couple easy buckets because he is like, he knew that Wilt Chamberlain mentally would go back to that game and being like, well, we lost, but I got mine. And that if he just dominated Wilt Chamberlain the entire game, he knew Wilt would be pissed and like really come back and give it to him. And he was like, man, Wilt Chamberlain with the right mindset, Bill Russell didn't even know if he could stop him. So he had to like manage Wilt this like, 4D chess kind of way.
Yeah.
The Heat are like that in a way where it's like, if you really piss him off, is it a good idea? Like, you just beat him by 7. Just beat him. Don't beat him by 30. I
Yeah.
just feel like this series is basically going to be exactly what we saw in the series last year. Is that, like I said, the Celtics are going to win a couple games by a lot of points, and people are going to
Yep.
get really excited, be like, "Oh man, Celtics going to win the championship."
Yeah.
But there's going to be games that are hard to watch, and they're rock fights, and the Heat are going to take some of those for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I like you said, I have no clue what the outcome is going to be. It could literally be any of the humanly possible outcomes, and I would be equally as surprised with any of them. All I know is the Celtics are just not going to have fun while they're playing this series.
I just feel like both teams are the same teams they were last year.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I know the Heat were an 8 seed and what, blah 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 blah. Just sitting here right now,
Yeah.
going into a Celtics Heat conference finals, I can tell you these two teams are the same two teams we watched last year,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a very similar series.
Yeah. I think the only difference is that Jimmy is just more pissed off, which is like hard to say, but I think it's true when you kind of look at what he's done this postseason. Yeah, I mean, it's just I could totally see him being like one man wrecking crewing this entire series.
Yeah, he will, and he'll steal at least 1 or 2 games by
Yeah.
just being awesome. Like, he'll have a game this series where it's like 58-10 or something
Yeah.
like that, and they'll win. And I could just already see all the box scores from this series fly in front of my. I know, for as much as I don't know how this is going to play out, I also know exactly how this is going to play out. Right? Like, we know what this series is going to be.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the West a little bit though, because we're 40 minutes in, and we basically just mentioned Jokic one time. Uh, the other team that went down since we last talked that I wanted to talk about a little bit is the Golden State Warriors, losing in 6 games to the Lakers. Fans from all corners of the NBA rejoicing at the Warriors' demise. The first Western Conference series they've lost since their first title run. They were like 19-0 in the West since that first year they won a title, and taken down by, somewhat ironically, LeBron James after all of the championship series they had against each other
Yeah.
in the LA Lakers. What do the Warriors do now? I
Cry.
I don't like, from a team building perspective.
They're in trouble.
I really don't understand what they do.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way Draymond is opting out of that deal. Uh, because nobody else is going to pay him that money. They cannot keep Poole and Green, if for no other reason because of the contract. But I think we we all know that there are other reasons too. We were both out on the vibe check before the season after Draymond decided that punching his teammate in the face was a great way to solve a conflict. That clearly didn't end. And even like Steph kind of admitted, like they just never felt like a championship team this year. Even in that
It's
game 7, like they never got going.
it's
They never
such
got going.
yeah, it is such bullshit from Steph Curry to come out and say we never felt like a championship team. That is a bold-faced lie because you lost. That right before
I mean, they were bad all year.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
don't
he doesn't believe it, but it's true.
I don't give a shit. I don't want to hear that from Steph Curry. Before game 7 of the Sacramento Kings series, he gave this like super impassioned speech to the locker room about like we're the Warriors and we're the defending champs and like we're going to go out and take care of business, blah blah. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Steph Curry thought that he could win the championship again this year. I don't want to hear it. The media like last week was like crowning this team. They're like, this is the team in the West. The Warriors are back. And I've been saying on this podcast for weeks, we both have.
Yeah.
The team was bad.
Yes.
They're not a good team. It was not the same Warriors team that won the championship last year. You just are who you are after a while. We had 82 games of data. We knew. So I don't want to hear this like him and Kerr and all these guys are like, well, we never really thought we had a chance. But like,
oh, no, I don't believe that they didn't think they had a chance, but I do believe that they feel the difference between like the strength of this team versus past teams. There's a clear difference there.
Yeah.
You cannot deny that.
I totally get that.
Yep.
But for Steph to come out and say something like, we never really thought this was a championship team, like don't give me that BS because you lost.
Yeah, but that everyone else saw it. So
I know.
That's what matters.
Not everyone, because there's this podcast. But I look at it and I'm like, okay, so obviously Steph is still at the height of his powers, but he's going to be 35 next season. And right now you have like over $200 million committed, assuming that Draymond Green picks up his option. Like the move that I keep seeing on social media and stuff is like, oh, we take, Jordan Poole, Kuminga, and Moody and trade that package for another star. What?
Where to start with that?
Well, like I saw that. The other thing I saw was that people were like, oh, I hate to say this, but it might be time to move on from Clay. We should trade Clay for like, Chris Middleton, or like we should trade Clay for Miles Bridges or something like that.
Nobody's doing that deal with them.
Right. But what is anybody giving up right now to pay Klay Thompson $40 million?
The only valuable asset they currently have is Steph Curry.
I think there's some value still to like Kuminga and Moody,
but not like what they're talking about.
No, like people are like basically saying Poole, Kuminga, and Moody is like a package to get a superstar there. I don't know. Like, okay, so
I might get you Tobias Harris.
Right, exactly. Like I'm a Kings fan, and if you're coming to me and you're like, hey, we'll give you Jordan Poole, Moody, and Kuminga for like, what will you give us for that? I'm like, okay, you're not getting Fox. You're not getting Sabonis. So that leaves like you could have like Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes. Maybe. I think fans are just irrational and don't understand. Like, I think Warriors fans look at like Klay Thompson and think that his value is approximately the same as it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that teams would really like to have Klay Thompson. But like, if you're the Miami Heat, would you trade Tyler Hero for Klay Thompson right now?
Oh, no.
Right. So like, you're not getting a significant piece back for Thompson. The Poole, Moody, Kuminga thing, maybe you bring in like a mid-level piece for that, but like with how bad Poole just was and like the obvious issues that there are in the locker room with him, I don't think a whole lot of teams are going to want to touch him.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at his age, you look at the injuries, you look at his performance after the injuries compared to his performance before the injuries. The writing's on the wall with him. And it sucks, it's not his fault, but like the combination of father time and those injuries, like he's going downhill. And he'll be a good piece on a team for some time longer just because of his ability to shoot and his size and his ability to kind of somewhat guard multiple positions, although certainly not to the degree that he used to be able to. But that's not a guy that you are building your team around. That is not a guy you are putting as the number two next to your star to build your team around.
Can't wait.
So
Can he shoot though?
during the regular season,
Yeah, I was gonna say like 3 for 19,
yeah,
3 for 12, 3 for 11, 5 for 14,
yeah,
11 for 18 in game two. Great
right,
performance. 9 for 25 in game one.
right. And here's the thing: we've seen his performance in big games before. We know he's not a choker. So why was he so bad? It's real late in the year. He's had some lower body injuries. I think he was just out of gas. And are you like, where's the value in that guy then?
No, it goes back to my question of like, so how do you put a contender around Steph Curry next year?
I just don't see I don't see a route right now. I just don't.
I don't either. I mean, if anybody could pull it off, it probably is Bob Myers.
Yeah, right.
But like, I really don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I guess like the only thing I can think of is like, is Poole, Moody, and Kuminga enough to get like Kyle Kuzma? And does adding Kyle Kuzma to this team, is that enough to push you over the top? I don't know.
I don't think so, given like the amount of depth that you're losing through that trade.
No, no. And
Like their bench is already pretty disappointing as it is. You lose those guys, and it's like, okay, like what is there to look forward to?
it's pretty tough. It's just funny because I was looking at like the fake trades that people were proposing for Clay, and it just reminded me of my favorite Reddit post I saw over the weekend was the Memphis Grizzlies fan who's like, I'm sick of Ja Morant. I think we should trade him. And here are some potential trade packages I think we can get. Ja to the Nets for Bridges, Cam Johnson, and all the Suns picks. Basically, the KD trade that was just made.
Yeah.
Trade him to Toronto for Siakam, OG Anunoby, Barnes, and picks. Or trade him to Utah for Markkanen, Kessler, contracts, and picks. And just like the delusion of fans to think that one of the other 29 NBA teams would even take Ja Morant right now if he was free is
They,
hysterical to
they
me.
they would take him if he was free.
I think right now, today, if the Grizzlies were like, we just want him off of our books, someone just take him, then nobody would take him.
The Cleveland Browns decided to not only trade all of their future picks for, but also give a fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson while he had like 24 suits open against him for sexual assault. I think that we could probably find one NBA owner that would take John Morant for free.
The NFL is a completely different beast, though. They just do not give a F.
No.
I really think like the optics of taking on John Morant right now is really rough. But I
Yeah.
do have one trade I think could work. Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. Let's get it, Warriors.
That's how you get it done. That's how you
That's
get a that's how you
that's
get a contender around him.
the fucking move, Bob Myers. Pull the trigger, baby. Pun fully intended.
Well, here's the thing though. They wouldn't be a contender though because Ja wouldn't have Steven Adams.
Mm.
I'm real disappointed that we did all this talk about the MVP and Steven Adams didn't come up once.
He is the real MVP.
He honestly might be.
Those are big flapjack facts. But speaking of the rightful MVP, do you have a read on the Lakers and Nuggets series, or like are you in the same camp as we are with the Eastern Conference, where it's like, eh,
Suns in six or less.
Nuggets?
Or
Did I say
yeah,
Suns?
I don't know.
Nuggets and Lakers.
Yeah, the not Lakers one.
Yeah, like
Yeah, no, I expect Jokic to absolutely tear through Anthony Davis.
I think it's going to be super interesting, and I'm kind of at the point where I'm ready to admit that I was wrong on Denver. One of the concerns we had about them is like, okay, like they can't really guard wings, and the defense
Yeah,
wasn't very good in the regular season.
right.
Since the playoffs started, they've gone from like 12th in defensive efficiency to second, but it's only behind the Lakers. So these are actually the two teams who have played the best defense in
Yeah,
the playoffs so far. And I'm interested to see Jokic go up against the Lakers defense because I think we're just at a point where if you're talking about a certain skill set of a certain player, I think Jokic's passing might be the most lethal weapon in the entire league.
yeah,
It's
I can
like
see that.
Jokic's passing, Steph Curry shooting.
Hmm.
It's on that level where it might be the single most dangerous thing in the league.
Yeah,
I was watching him in a couple games last week and just like the combination of vision and height and just passing ability unlocks defenses in a way that like no other player can
yeah,
because he can see everything. He can throw the ball over people. He was like, I'm stealing an NFL phrase here. He was literally throwing guys open
yeah.
during the Sun series. It
Well,
was
and
amazing.
I think the thing that sets him apart though, because we've seen big guys with great vision before, right? His touch, that the level of manual dexterity that he has to finesse things the way that he does, you combine the height, the vision, and that together, like those three together are on a level that no one has ever had.
It it's truly incredible, and I don't know how you stop it.
What
Panther,
makes his unstoppableness so unstoppable?
the best commercial of all time. Like, is the answer a very athletic big man who can step out like Anthony Davis? I I mean, I guess we're gonna find out
Yeah.
because we haven't seen what the answer is so far, but like
I mean, I think the answer is no, but
we're gonna find out. I just like I'm gonna say I agree with you, probably like Nuggets in like 5 or 6.
yeah.
Partially just because Jokic is like a cheat code at this point, and the guys on this team have played together for so long. Like the Nuggets are the classic NBA story where it's like you have this group of guys and they have to go through their trials and tribulations in the playoffs before they finally get over the hill.
Yeah.
Right? They got to like go and they got to lose in the first round, and then they make the conference finals and they lose there, and then they lose in the second round, and then the first round again. And it's like they're evolving and like learning.
Yeah.
And I kind of appreciate that in a league that's so like, we're going to throw this championship team together and it's just going to go win this year. Like
Yeah,
I can appreciate that. So that's part of it. The other part is I legitimately don't know if anyone can win in Denver right now, aside from the Nuggets.
right.
Like they've been so incredible at home, really all year, but especially in these playoffs. I don't know if 38-year-old LeBron James or however old he is now can go into the high altitude in Denver and pull out a win for the Lakers.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm fascinated to see Jokic's passing against the Lakers defense, but that home court
Yeah.
advantage is it's a real thing because not only is it like you're at home in front of your fans, but
Hmm.
you have like a real serious home advantage. Like it reminds me of like the Miami Dolphins in the NFL,
Yeah.
where the atmosphere is just so shitty, but they're used to it.
I think we've even seen sometimes if you are able to power through uh, you know, playing in Denver, like that year that Portland beat them and got to the Western Conference Finals, you're gassed at that point. Even if you do win this series, you better win it quick because you're going to need the extra days to like get some life back in your legs. I also want to point out that like the Lakers have largely gotten to where they are by just being absolutely able to own the paint at all points of both series that they have played. Neither team that they played on their way here was able to do anything really in the paint or in the rebounding department compared to them. And I just can't see that happening in the series. And I think that when that doesn't happen, they're in big trouble.
Yeah, my gut feel on the two conference finals is that it's going to be Nuggets and Celtics.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the different possible combinations of the championship, that Nuggets Celtics is the best from a basketball perspective. You know, the depth and the talent of both of those teams, Tatum
Yeah.
and Brown versus Jokic and Murray, like it's super fun. Obviously, people are going to be pushing from a narrative perspective for Celtics Lakers.
Not I.
No, I
I don't think that's a fun narrative, anyways. I think something that you've seen a million times before isn't too narratively original.
it's not, but people don't like original. You ever watch TV?
Well, Netflix really doesn't like original because they launch a bunch of series that are like very successful for one season and they're like, nah.
You know what I found out about Netflix that's interesting? It starts costing way more to make a show after two seasons because of like how this uh actors guild is set up. You have to like start paying people X amount more dollars and stuff. And so that's why so many shows only go two seasons. Is like they'll do two seasons of like almost anything. But then at the end of those two seasons, no matter where the show is at story wise, they start evaluating like the metrics
Hmm.
and looking at like, do we think this show could be long term successful or not? And that's why so many
Yeah.
get cut off after two seasons. I didn't know that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is interesting. Especially like if you're talking about shows that are going to cost more in terms of like CGI and stuff like that, like they're going to get cut real quick if they're not entirely sold that it's going to take off, which, in two seasons, you really can't make that evaluation.
Yeah. So I'm Nugget Celtics for the finals. I think that's going to be the popular pick, probably. Are
Yeah.
you on board or are you going Nuggets Heat?
I'm gonna go Nuggets Heat just to be spicy. Some spicy
Like
nuggies.
like a little spice on this podcast. I forgot to mention that sometimes I like to get you on this podcast after you've had a long day at work because you get like
Yeah,
the
when I have no voice.
no, but you get like a little like cagey,
Oh
like a
yeah.
little cagey, little spicy. Like there was one podcast where I was like, "Well, where do you want to start?" And you were like, "I don't give an F." And I was just like, "Yeah, it's Friday and Matt's worked all week when." Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
I
got
literally walked in the door like 15 minutes before we started recording.
hmm. So you got spicy McNuggets for your final. I got Shamrock Nuggets. It's gonna be a
That
fun. It's gonna be
that
fun
doesn't
conference finals.
sound very tasty, honestly.
No, I was trying to go for like a combination of like the Shamrock Shake and the chicken nuggets. Like I'm picturing dipping my nuggets in a Shamrock Shake and eating those, which I do think would be very tasty.
I don't know about the Shamrock Shake, but that's my opinion.
You don't like Shamrock Shakes?
Not with fucking chicken nuggets.
Oh, I thought you just meant in general on the Shamrock Shake, and I was like, this is it. We've been friends for what? How long have we been friends? 15, 16
Oh,
years?
it's yeah. So we really became friends like sophomore year of high school.
It was
So
16 years. I was like probably no, I was 15 at the time, so it's been like 17 years.
yeah,
That was going to be the end of 17 years of friendship. If you were like, I don't like Shamrock Shakes, I was going to turn this podcast off. There wasn't even going to be like a thanks for listening. There wasn't going to be a goodbye, mom. It was just going to be like the podcast would just end and no episodes would ever come out ever again.
the last words on that pod were bye, Robin.
Yeah, just bye. So, but all right, that is it for us.
Yeah.
As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. I forgot to say that last week.
Oops.
You can hit us up on Twitter at Fouled Out Sports. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matador_defense. And you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It is a long name, but you can't miss it. Conference finals are set for the NBA. Should be two really entertaining series, minus the couple rock fight games we're going to have from the Heat and Celtics, where it's like 60-70. The conference finals are almost set for the NHL. We have Carolina and Florida in one conference, and then the Vegas Golden Knights are awaiting the winner of the Dallas Stars and the Seattle Kraken, who are playing on my other screen right now with 0-0 halfway through the game. So fun end to the game 7. It's a good time. We got like maybe a month left before the darkness comes for us all. Oh,
we'll bring some brightness to that darkness with some interesting concepts.
We 100% will, but I almost forgot to say this to you. NBA draft lottery.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night. Pistons with the highest odds to land the number 1 pick and potential generational superstar Victor Wembanyama. How do you feel?
If we get the number 1 pick again, I am never wearing pants again.
That's pretty succinct. I was gonna say good luck and I'm rooting for you, but now I'm questioning if I should be rooting for this or not.
You're a shorts guy.
You'll get okay. Yeah. Just shorts in the middle of winter in Kalamazoo. I'm sure that's going to go fantastic for you.
It's never gone poorly.
All right, buddy.
Once.
Good luck tomorrow. I will talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, Robin.
Bye, Mom.